welcome Markus to
Gatherum.
website and pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Omnium Gatherum, this new album, and more things related to the heavy metal world. First of all, how have you been?
I'm all good. It's rainy and cold in Finland, as it should be this time of the year, so I prefer to be inside. All good. I was just fixing my car and that kind of like normal things in life. There haven't been that much touring lately, so I've been diving to the normal life routines,
Yeah.
which is nice for a change because I've spent the past 10 or 15 years on the road, so
Okay.
learning to live.
Okay. You are releasing Origin through Century Media Records. It has been 3 years since The Burning Call from 2018. What is the best time to compose the melodies and riffs for Omnium Gatherum, considering that you compose for two bands, Omnium and Insomnium?
Yeah, and two others,
Yeah,
two
yeah.
others also. Because of this lockdown pause, there's been even more bands, but I don't, I don't know how it happens. It just happens. All the people are always asking me like, how am I doing it? But I don't think it too much. I just do it. Like now, it was a really good time to do all this music because the lockdown. That was the good part of pandemic and lockdown. So there was finally a lot of time in the world to do composing music at home and really have your own isolation, be at home. You have nothing to do except music, and I can maybe tell it might be can be heard from Origin album that we really did that album a long time compared to the others because there was time this time. And
Great.
first
Talking
we did the Omnium EP, so it's for me it's always been like a working with a certain release at the same time, not like a doing songs for Insomnium today and Omnium Gatherum tomorrow and black metal band the next day. It's just I concentrate on one thing at the moment, but that's how I got things done.
Okay, talking about the origin a little more, what is the difference between the final product achieved with James Brogan compared to Dan Swano? Because listening this new album, there are not many difference.
We worked with Dan Svano like I cannot even count, maybe five previous albums. So we just needed not like an inner urge to do something different this time. And I've liked Jens Bogren's productions a lot that he's been doing during the years. So that's why it's like a natural choice to do this album. Still Swedish like Dan Svano, so he knows the death metal Scandinavian way, but I think Jens' way of producing music, he polishes it a bit more. Dan Svano was a bit more rough, and I think this more polished soundscape suited well with the Origin because it's more pop.
Hello. The connection.
What we didn't want to. The connection got lost.
Yeah, the connection is lost. Was lost.
Yeah. Back in business.
Yeah. I'm listening to one, I just 10 words, then I lost you.
Yeah. We are far away from each other, so there's an ocean between us.
Yeah. Well, I hear about the question is bueno, if there are any many difference with these productions, with their productions.
Like with the Burning Cold and Origin. Yeah, we did it completely in different studios. With the Origin we went back to the origin of this is the first place where we recorded the first two OG albums with Nino Laurenne at Sonic Pump Studios in Helsinki. So we returned that same studio after 17 years. So it was like a class reunion. It was really nice to go back to that studio after.
Okay.
And then the mix. So basically, basically the whole mixing process had been different than on the Burning Cold album. But of course, it's usually I'm doing the production side from the like band side. So that's why the Omnium Gatherum sound is still there because I act to be like the producer. So, and I write the music the way I write. So even if I would try to sound different, I would still sound like Markus.
Hmm.
And that's
Okay.
a curse and a blessing. Okay. To have kind of
Okay.
own way.
Okay. Okay. So when you got entrance to the voice positions, there is a moment in a band which he managed to grow much more with the band. I consider this evolve happened in the Red Shift, when where Omnium Gatherum achieves something more defined. So what do you think of this? Do you think it's like that?
You mentioned the rest shift, and I can also relate that it's, if I have to say album is like the breakthrough album of Omnium Gatherum, it's the Red Shift because we learned a lot of things with that album, like how to produce the real way. Like Guns One was the first, that was the first album Guns One mixed, so we learned many tricks from him and kind of like started to act like a real band. We did the real big tours outside Finland with the Red Shift album, toured with Dark Tranquility and Nile and Grave and Swallow the Sun. I think we started to tour a lot after Red Shift. So
Mm-hmm.
it, being a band is always a learning process, and we started pretty young. I started this band when I was 14, so it's all about learning.
Wow.
Growing with the band. I've been already over half of my life in this band, so naturally things are evolving and changing. And
Okay. The band always had to change members, and usually we don't know how bands are managed in Europe, especially, or in Finland. So perhaps it's more like a business way than as a group of friends making music. Who knows? Because which is what the majority of the fans thinks about this in when you change a lot of lineup. So why have these changes occurred in your lineup? And what is the common denominator of these changes?
well, this lifestyle is pretty hard to be in a touring band, which is really active. Basically, it takes all your time and destroys your social life and destroys your marriages and stuff and so on. If you are in a wrong relationship, so always these things go in between. And Omnium Gatherum is still in that size band that we cannot make like the whole living from this band, so it's difficult. That's where it's always this business side comes, and people when people are growing old, they start to want different things than to travel and see only airports. I'm the crazy one because I'm playing in Somnium and Omnium Gathering with both are active bands, and I'm always on the road. But I like my life hard, and that's my way of doing the thing together. With these two bands, I can do only metal music, and I can have a living through two bands. So that's basically, I think, one of the reasons why OG's members have always constantly changing, because we are not getting any younger, and in this age, people are starting to like to live easy life, get your normal day job and stuff like that, and that's how it. I felt it usually went with that way with OG and Jonas and Erkki, for example. They just got rid of, wanted to get rid of like a traveling all the time, and I can understand that because it's really boring to be in the airports and travel, sitting in the bus and sitting in the van. Gigs are always great, but the traveling is the hardest part of this job. So I would say that is the main reason for these lineup changes nowadays, at least.
Okay, okay. I've quite apart from our E or R death metal nickname that you had for many fans. There are Omnium Gatherer songs directly influenced by bands like Journey or Toto especially in frontiers, or it's actually something that I felt personally. I felt this kind of vibe into the songs. So does it really influence Omnium Gatherum by these bands, or just a is a coincidence? A coincidence the sound that you have achieved.
Well, maybe we started more like a regular death metal band or melodic death metal bands, and in the past we listened a lot like Swedish death metal and got our influences from there, like bands like Old In Flames and Dark Tranquility,
Yeah.
surprisingly, and Opeth and this kind of stuff. But we're getting old. All of us have been starting to listen music in a really much more larger scale, and with that adult-oriented death metal AOR thing, I've always joked like it's Omnium Gatherum takes influences from like Top Gun soundtracks or Rocky 4 soundtracks, and there's like this big 80s vibe in our music, and also this Toto and Journey and Foreigner and really this cheesy American radio rock. It's just something that we take a lot of like influences from that box, because I think that's the way to do like a original kind of music, like that you are taking influences from outside the box. Like if you be out playing melodic death metal, I think it's much more wiser and logical to take our ingredients outside the melodic death metal box from the whatever Journey box or something. That makes music more unique, and I think there is enough already these Finnish sounding melodic death metal bands which are drowning to Finnish sorrow and stuff like that. Even I'm playing in one other band which thinks so, that kind of stuff. So it's just not Omnium Gatherum's way of doing music. We are more 80s hard rock, also in a death metal palette.
Mm. Okay, okay. I've been seeing your entire discography since Spirits and August Light came out in 2003. Because you released this new album through Rage and Achilles. But
Yeah, they did.
Since Years and Waste 2004 to this new one, Origin, the band always release an album through a great label like Nuclear Blast, like Candlelight, like Force, and now Century Media. So what does it feel to like? It's like to always be inside with a heavy labels, because you are always in a heavy labels. And for you, what are the memories with Rage of Achilles? Cause now that label is closed.
Yeah, those are really warm memories because Rage of Achilles was the first one, and it's always the first things what matter. And I remember I was tape trading and sending a lot of like demos worldwide when I was like whatever. It's over 20 years ago that happened, and Rage of Achilles was the first label to sign us. They immediately signed us and sent us the papers, and of course we were young and hungry and stupid to say like you got your first offer and we are immediately signing it. And then we got many other offers, but we already signed to Rage of Achilles, so because we wanted to be quick and to do the first album fast. And it was Rage of Achilles was cool label. Of course, it was really underground indie label, and but they helped us to start our band, and then they went bankruptcy. That's why the second album came out via Nuclear Blast, because Rage of Achilles already quit the business when we were in the studio making the second album. So we were left to a pretty bad situation. We had like a huge studio bill with us, and then the label says, "Oh, we cannot release our album and we cannot pay your invoices." And luckily, the studio guy Nino, who again did the Origin now after all these years, he know the Nuclear Blast guys, and he just sent a message to Nuclear Blast that could you save these guys from a bad situation. And Nuclear Blast really helped us, and they signed us for the next album, and they released our first album, re-released. So they did the Spiritual August Light and Yes and Waste albums and saved us, but that was it basically that they wanted to do for us back then, because we were a pretty small band and they were a big label. So in the end it didn't work, and And then we went to Candlelight, which was okay, and but from the Candlelight we switched to Life Force Records because Life Force Records is a really cool label, and Stefan Lüdicke, the boss, is still my good friend, and they helped. They did maybe the biggest push for the band because they kept us as a priority. And but then people, well, things changed, and we just wanted to push the band further. And Century Media has been also my good friends from Insomnium side, and then Century Media wanted to sign the band, and here we are. I think they are doing a really good job, and they have a bit much more bigger machinery behind the label than Life Force because it's Sony Entertainment, like the world's biggest companies in a good and a bad. So that's basically why we are now in Century Media. And I've always thought Century Media have been really cool label. They used to be signing all the cool bands in the 90s, and they still are.
Yeah, yeah. One thing that I want to ask you is about what are you feel to play in two success bands into the melodic death metal like Omnium, Gatherum and Insomnium, because outside of Europe there are the biggest ones into the melodic death metal.
Cool to hear that. We still be there one day. Well, the bad side of playing these two bands is every time when whatever my relative or some non-metal person is asking like, what bands are you playing? And to someone who doesn't know anything about metal, and then I'm saying like Insomnium and Omnium, Gatherum, and it's always like people asking like, why your both bands are pretty similar named,
Yeah.
and I'm always like, it's my fate, it's a destiny. I didn't plan that because I didn't even didn't invent the name Omnium Gatherum by myself. It was our past keyboard player that invented the name, so I don't have anything to do with those names. And then later on, Insomnium asked me to join the band, and now all the melodic death metal scene is always having fun with this Insomnium Gatherum commune. But in my world, those two bands are still pretty different. Like Insomnium is much more melancholic and darker band, and Omnium Gatherum is more uplifting, Americanized, Sweden-like death metal, and Insomnium is then much more in the Finnish heart. So in my world, it's easy to compose to both bands because here in my head they are like a yin and yang, completely different. I am here, and Insomnium is here, and OG is here, and they just make me complete.
Okay. Okay.
Of course, it makes me a really busy man always being on the
Yeah.
road or studios. But
Yeah.
this is what I live for. This is my life, and I've chosen my path.
Great, great. So now we will talk about something abstract in the world, because perhaps you hear about the synesthesia matter.
Sorry, what?
Synesthesia.
Synesthesia. What is that?
Yeah, synesthesia is when a person, bueno, 5% of the population in the world can do this or can feel this, because the synesthesia talks about that you can feel the taste and smells and colors with the music, So,
Yeah.
so related to this matter, how will you describe the smells and flavors that the listeners will find into this origin?
I don't know about the taste or the smell. I wonder, that's a really hard question. It smells like gasoline and pina colada, and taste is pina colada and all the good 80s things, I think, I hope.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the good color for origin,
Blue.
which is that kind of deep blue. I usually see the music more as like a pictures and landscapes. Like I always think soundscapes as like a wide landscapes, and that's where I get my influence for the like
Hmm.
music. If I get the certain feeling like this is huge and this is like an ocean or a nice big mountain or scenery in the forest, that's when I know. If I get those goosebumps by myself, then I know I'm on the right track.
Okay,
And I,
great, great. As I said in the first question, we will talk about other matters into the heavy metal world, and the questions for you. What are the biggest difference between the Finnish melodic death metal with the Swedish one?
Swedish people are more happy than Finnish people, and also Swedish death metal is more happier than Finnish death metal. I think that's the biggest difference. OG is bit like a black sheep in Finnish metal scene because OG's music is more happier than your average Finnish melodic death metal, like Insomnium or Amorphis or Swallow the Sun or you name it, Ghost Brigade. And Sweden have always been maybe more Americanized Scandinavian country than Finland because we are more like a forest people here in Finland.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and relating to this, why in Finland the metal or heavy metal is more stronger than than other countries in Europe? Because when I was there in 2015, when to see Finnish death metal bands like Abhorrence, Devil, this kind of stuff, always in a bar, in a restaurant, in the streets, you can hear heavy metal. If we try to compare with other countries in Europe, it's very difficult to see that. So why the Finland people is very inclinated or very attached to the heavy metal world?
I think the heavy metal trend in Finland is have a little bit decreased. Like maybe 10 years ago, here was like heavy metal bar in every city. Not matter if it's big or small city, but it's not like that anymore. It's Finnish have went more into Finnish rap, which really sucks, and I hope it just goes away. But I'm also happy with that the metal is again going a bit more to the underground in Finland because after Lordi won the Eurovision Song Contest, like everyone was into metal in Finland, and I prefer metal and more death metal and black metal to be more like a secret society. It's not for all people. I don't I don't like it when it's too popular or like your mainstream stuff.
Mm.
As when I started to listen to metal and death metal back in the many years ago, when I was a kid, then nobody knew like death metal or black metal in places here where I'm living, and only really few people. And then if you met like a guy in or girl or whatever dog in the street with a, for example, with an amorphous shirt or death shirt, then you immediately became friends with that person because you didn't see people wearing like a metal shirts. So you went to talk like, oh, what album do you like and that kind of stuff. In fact, me and Omnium Gatherum's former singer Antti, we met at the first time maybe in the mid 90s, just because we were in the same bus and I had the dissection shirt, and then Antti was coming to speak to me. You like dissection? Hell yeah, I like that. Then we became friends, and we still are.
Great. So, as I said, we will talk about other matters. Into this kind of matters, you talk about one thing, the mainstream, and your previous answer talk about the tape trading, because this kind of stuff was the biggest movement in the 80s and the starts of the 90s. But now we have the digital platforms. With digital platforms, you can share the music more easily, more faster, this kind of stuff. And where? For that, what is your opinion about vinyl and tape first? And second, where is located for you the vinyl and the digital platforms? Because some people thinks that the digital platforms is just for the mainstream bands and not for underground bands.
Well, if I speaking personally and not from my band's view, I'm like an old school guy, and I still listen to vinyls and CDs. I don't have tape player anymore, so I'm not doing tape playing, but I still have like a lot of tapes. I should I should get a cassette player, but I always listen to CDs and vinyls, and I don't have Spotify, and I don't like digital platforms because I think it's more disposable stuff. This is where I'm starting to look like an old geezer because back in the day you didn't get like all the metal stuff or whatever stuff because now everything is at your hand. You get in 1 second everything, every music piece from the world at your computer or phone. And back in the day, you had to buy a CD, and even if you didn't like that CD, you started to like it because you paid for it, and you are gonna listen to it again and again and again.
Yeah.
And same if your friend got a new album, then all the friends gathered and listened to the album together, and we lived more through the albums back then. Now all the music is there and available. I don't see the kids anymore gathering around with Spotify at your some home and listening some new cool bands. I hope they do that, but that was the same with more secret society.
Mm.
Like albums had more meaning
Yes.
back in the day because there everything wasn't available.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Now.
made more like a magic for the everything felt like a magic and secret.
Yes. Yes.
See,
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. But now you said one thing: the albums in the 80s and the 90s and the beginnings of 2000s was a really appreciated for metal community. But now the new generation brings us to just listenings. So singles, because new generation for 25, 28, or perhaps 15 years loves to hear the music with one, two, three, or maximum four songs from an album. So for you, what are you think about the albums doesn't have the same impact compared to the 80s and 90s? And what does band needs to do to improve the listeners of all songs in an album?
yeah, it all goes to this that everything is so disposable nowadays. Like for example, when I'm like a composing album music, I think about the whole album, like a intro, the
Yeah.
last song, and all the drama. It's like a movie that you think about all the scenes. So I really like to think about album wise the stuff, and it's sad if the people doesn't anymore like listen to the whole album. It doesn't matter if it's digital or vinyl, but they should like listen to the whole album and got the whole dramaturgy of the album and what happens, because that's how albums are made, and I hope so at least many albums. I felt very weird. Speaking of with Insomnium, the latest release we did was this EP, and it was label's decision that label wanted to release it single by single. So it basically was like four single because that's how pop culture releases music
Yeah.
nowadays. And it was something different for us, but I was happy in the end that it was released on vinyl in the end as all these songs in EP because that's where the magic is on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
compilation. There's like all the stuff in album release are important, like artwork and whatever band pictures and lyrics and what is there on the booklet. I love them. When I'm listening to music, my wife is always like laughing to me, like because she says I'm looking like a young kid because I have whatever vinyl here is some when it's Insomnium. Like I put some CD on and or vinyl and stare to the booklet and all the
Ah, the book.
what is there. Yeah, and it's more like a overall feeling, like diving to the album compactly, and
I
that's why I don't give a fuck about this playlists and like automatic playlists. Like people just put a playlist on and they just listen. What are you listening? I'm listening to new metal tracks. It's like okay, you don't exactly listen some band or you just listen all the stuff coming there. So that's nothing for me. But like I said, I'm old at heart.
well, yeah, me too, because I Because me too, because I love all kind of physical materials. I got all your discography from Insomnia because I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I have here, I have here the Winter Gate. Yes.
Oh yeah.
The Winter Gate.
I've seen that.
I have the Hard Like on the Great and two with the book too. So because I really like it.
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
so well.
And like, but one good thing with this new generation is that the vinyl had come back. It was
Yeah.
something that nobody expected, like a 2005 or something, that vinyl would make a comeback. So there's also good stuff
Well,
in metal scene.
yeah. So,
And
well,
metal people are always like collectors more than, but metal people still wants to physical release a lot. So
yes,
there's,
I always, I'm old too because I'm from the 80s too. So I prefer to hear the music like now, always than an album. I don't doesn't like, I don't like the EP format because I prefer to wait for the long,
Yeah.
from the long. I don't like the EP now. Until now, I have more than 3,000 CDs, and I prefer to hear the album, to hear the band with the album. That's the way for me. I'm with
yeah,
it. So,
the real.
yeah. So, well, Markus, the sad times arrive at this interview. I hope you enjoyed this one as I did, and thank you very much for your time. And the last
Thank-
album of for the Omnium Gatherum is a great one as usually. Take care of during this pandemic situation, and our best wishes from this part of the world. Any last words for your fans in Latin America and
Gatherum.
critics that expect perhaps in the future and a gig here with when a tour in a full tour here in Latin America, and not you guys because I tried to find some information. I never play here a full tour here in Latin America.
Yeah, that's something I'm really looking forward and really hope that's gonna happen soon, because I would love to come there. I've never been in South America or Latin America. I think Mexico is the nearest one I've played a show, but we should definitely come there. And if it would be up to me, I would there in a second. But it's always about all the agents and managers, and you know the drill. But really hoping we can come there someday. I again, I'm not bullshitting you. I sent a message to after this album to our OG's agent that we really have to come to Latin America now, because it's long due.
Yeah.
We've been everywhere, like in North America, Australia, Asia, Europe, many times, and I don't know why we haven't met there, but we will come there. That's a promise.
Okay.
Hopefully soon.
Okay.
Never surrender.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time, Marcos. It was a pleasure to talk with you.